This is the Classic Auto Mall Show. Broadcast from the studios inside the Classic Auto Mall in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Just 1 hour west of Philadelphia at Pennsylvania Turnpike exit 298. Featuring nearly 1,000 classic, vintage, and barn-find vehicles for sale under one climate-controlled roof. Now, here's your host, Classic Auto Mall president and the man with all the toys, Stuart Howden.
Good morning, gentlemen. How's everybody this morning? On a wonderful sunny day in beautiful Morgantown, Pennsylvania.
Spring is on its way.
Yes, sir.
It better be. I'm tired of this cold.
I had it.
And my house, why is my house colder when it's 50 outside, inside, than it is when it's 30 outside?
Mine too.
I don't understand it.
Insulation. It gets cold at night, and then it just holds on to it.
No idea what you're talking about.
No, I don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just keep running up that bill.
So we were gonna do our normal thing where we guess how much inventory we have, but somebody cheated and looked at the sheet.
I didn't know it was on the sheet.
It's always on the sheet.
I have to, what do you call it? Excuse myself.
Yeah, you have to recuse
myself. That's the word.
Recuse yourself from guessing how many cars in inventory. So we'll let JR just guess this week. JR, how many?
I heard partial, but I can't remember what it was, so I'm going to go with 960.
970 is the number.
Wow, that's amazing.
You're like
Kreskin.
a savant.
Amazing Kreskin.
So they say.
970 cars in inventory. Thank goodness. We got a little breathing room. We're actually going to empty out the north hallway here.
Oh, yeah?
And clean it.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So, wow, what a concept that'll be after all winter of ice and sand and stuff dragging in. Sure. And so we're gonna finally get it clean because, it's funny that people don't seem to notice the floors, the ceilings, or the walls or any of that because they're staring at all the 970 cars.
Wow, that's good.
Absolutely.
Maybe I need to move some cars into my house.
Yeah, I think
Maybe that's why people have them in their living room.
I think so. A lot of people do have cars in their houses, which is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Dantana had one in his car.
Who?
Dantana from Vegas. Remember that?
Vegas.
He pulled a Thunderbird right into the apartment.
Nice.
By the way, I've been on that set.
Oh, really?
Anyway,
okay.
Another day.
Let's get to our guest who's, graciously gotten up early this morning to join us, calling us from Zooming us from Southern California. Good morning, Pete Lyons. How are you this morning?
Good morning, guys. It's good to be here with you.
Glad to have you here and glad to see that you're representing both the foreign and the domestic interest of automobiles. I like that a lot.
Thanks for noticing.
Yeah. Well, we try to pay attention. We always don't do the greatest job, but we try our best to pay attention. For those of you that don't know, Pete Lyons is celebrated author, photographer, reporter, journalist, and maybe a raceaholic, I think I read somewhere.
I came up with that phrase on my website, yes.
I love that. That's absolutely fantastic. And a new book is out that you've written, which would be number 16?
Well, I count this as number 16.
Right.
It's my memoir, actually.
Oh, wow. My Travels on Racer Road.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. And the picture on front with you and Mario, and who's that to the left of?
That's Ronnie Peterson. That was Mario's teammate there in 1978.
Is that 78? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, fantastic.
That's at Monte Carlo. And that's me talking to the two.
Yeah, you got it.
Actually, I'm listening to them talking to their mechanics. And you can tell from Mario's face, he's not buying what the mechanic is telling him.
He's calling BS on that, right?
Right.
But I bet he was one of those drivers that knew what he was doing. And I say that not off the cuff or flippantly. He knew the cars, right? He could tell the cars. He could tell them what was going on with the car, and that was so important for a good race car driver.
Mario is one of the most intelligent and experienced and thoughtful of the drivers in terms of setting up the car. He loves the technology of it. He was instrumental in making that particular Lotus work. That was the first ground effects Lotus that it won a world championship in 1978 for Mario. He was the champion, and he is only the second ever American champion.
Right.
Preceded by Phil Hill back in the 60s.
And I guess that was the same era that the John Player Special, they had the black airplane and the Lotus Esprit on the tarmac with, my God, that was so cool.
Oh, yeah, right.
What a picture.
That was a good color scheme.
Yeah, and we all wanted that airplane. That airplane was just cool when you saw that. It absolutely was. So Mario, was it tough for him to get in over there, or did they want him more than he wanted them, so to speak?
Oh, Mario was world famous even when he started.
Right.
I mean, when he started in 1968, the very first time he ever drove a racing car was for Lotus at the U.S. Grand Prix in Watkins Glen, New York, 1968.
Wow.
And he'd not been in a Grand Prix before, and Colin Chapman invited him to drive there. And Mario has said that, he didn't want to just arrive and drive. He wanted to come and make a statement.
Right.
And he started from pole position.
Wow.
Against all the drivers who were in the contention for the world championship that year.
Wow. That was probably a little frustrating to those guys. They were probably wondering, who's this upstart here?
I imagine so. To my great distress, I was not there that day. I wish I'd been.
Wow. Yeah. What a great day to have been there. But you were there for a lot of great days, I imagine. You saw many, many wonderful races. And, of course, the foreword in your book was written by some guy named Jackie Stewart, I think. Jackie Stewart?
He's Jackie Stewart. He's actually Sir Jackie now. He was knighted for his contributions to the British Empire.
Sure. I've talked to a couple of people that have ridden with him and followed and tracked the way that he drove, and they said that you could hardly tell the difference between him accelerating or decelerating. It just all felt so smooth the way that he handled a race car, or any car for that matter.
The only time I rode with Jackie around the racetrack in a car, it was a street car fitted up to carry squirrel journalists like myself around the racetracks. Ford Motor Company put it available. It was a Ford Capri 3-liter V6. And it was a decent enough car, but it was a touring car, with a roll cage and racing seats and so on. So I never got to ride with Jackie in a real car, but I can tell you that he was incredibly smooth.
Right. Well,
you're exactly right.
You did get to ride in one pretty cool car, though, I read about, with Peter Revson.
Yes, I've got a model of it there.
Oh, is that the car back there? Oh my God!
That's the real car. That's the one I was small enough to fit into in those days.
Well, you've grown a little bit, Pete.
I won't get it. It'll cause a problem.
Right. You'll probably disconnect or something. Right. Wow. So was the car specifically set up for how was that? Was there a seat? I mean, did they have two seats in those things? How did that work?
The part of the Canadian American Challenge Cup rules and regulations, the CanAm, was that that was sanctioned by the sports car clubs of both America and Canada. And so the cars had to look like sports cars. That means they had to have full coverage bodywork over the wheels, and they had to have two seats.
Wow.
Now, in the case of the passenger, it was a seat like that. And they had no padding or anything in there. The driver, Peter Revson, was sitting there as the driver, and he was in his normal home, but he took probably 55-60% of the space.
Right.
And so all I had, and I wasn't the only rider that day, but every one of us had to get into what amounted to a aluminum tub this wide. And some of us are a little wider than would fit comfortably, but at the time like that, we're not going to quibble.
No.
And in order to, first of all, to slide into it, I had to take my shoes off. So I'm in my stocking feet on this bare aluminum.
Nice.
And my feet are like this because there's so little room in the foot box.
Right.
Remember, the front wheels are there, and the driver actually sitting slightly sideways to kind of angle into that foot box, and so that leaves very little room for this theoretical passenger in this sports car.
Sure.
But at a time like this, you're willing to do that.
You do it. You right. Suffer through it because it's the greatest thing that'll be on your resume probably for the rest of your life, right?
I often said that was the best 5 minutes of my 5 decades of life in this.
You said you looked over at one time at the tachometer and it was at 68 or something, and you equated that to almost 160 miles an hour?
It was close to 190.
Oh, well, 160, 190, right?
I was curious, so they showed me the gearing chart, and that day, for that track, the top gear was 6.8 was 185, I think. But the last time I saw the 6.8, the needle's going like this.
Right.
And the last time I looked at it, that's what it read. But he kept his foot hard down, and what caught my attention then was that boilerplate steel wall coming at me at 190 miles an hour. So I don't know exactly what the peak revs were.
Right. Wow. Were you using that passenger side imaginary brake pedal any over there? Was that?
There's no way I can move anything.
Wow, that had to be a life. I mean, just you wouldn't even hesitate to raise your hand to experience that, no matter how dangerous. What, were you scared? I mean, were you nervous about it, or did you not even have time to think about that?
There was one moment of apprehension as we came blasting out of the pits, and the first real turn on the track was turn 2, which was a very fast, call it 120 odd mile an hour turn to the right. And, we were going incredibly fast already, even out of the pits. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I've never been this fast. But all he did was just turn the steering wheel, and the car just went like that. And there's no sense of drama or problem that the car didn't quiver or curve. And so I thought, okay, we're fine.
Yeah.
And I completely relaxed. All I did was just open my mind to try to record all the impressions and thoughts and questions I had. And that was, a story I just had to write.
Sure. And talking about like the oil stains on the track and stuff, that they were just coming by so fast you couldn't. Yeah. It was hard to comprehend. I mean, how cool is that?
I appreciate you reading it that carefully. Thank you, Stuart.
I try to do my homework because Judy Stropus makes me, she says, if I'm going to get all these famous people for you, then you're going to have to do your homework. So she's a wonderful human being and such a good fan of our show and such a big help to our show.
Yeah, she's great.
She really is. And I tell you, what I was fascinated with, and of course your new book, I mean, that section, talking about Revy, you called him. Was that his nickname back then, or is that your nickname for him?
That's what everybody called him.
And what year did he die? What was that?
That was 1974.
74. So, gosh, a few years later. And so that, so traumatic. We were talking about the other day when Ayrton Senna passed away and how that changed so many different things. Steve Austin was on the show, who does the tours over there in Europe and takes people in groups of people to Goodwood and Monaco and different places like that. And, he said when Ayrton Senna passed, it was just a heartbreaking thing that happened in the hobby or in the sport. And then for Bernie Ecclestone to say a year later, he said probably was the best thing that ever, unfortunately, one of the best things that ever happened to Formula One because of the amount of exposure it got, and what a horrible thing to happen, to get that kind of exposure. And I would imagine that when Peter Revson died, although a lot of people in the States, even though he was from the States, probably didn't even know who he was, right?
Well, he had distinguished himself in the CanAm series. He was the 1971 CanAm champion.
Right.
He was also very good at Indianapolis. He started from, I think, pole position one year and finished, I don't remember what the result was.
Right.
But no, Peter was a well-established and rising American star. And the thing is, he came from great wealth.
Right.
His family was wealthy, but he was not personally wealthy. They gave him an annuity so that he could live. But he had more money than you and I put together. Probably,
right.
Probably saying something in your case. But he had to pay for everything, and so he didn't act like a rich kid.
Right.
And he was a very serious racing driver. So the idea of champagne Peter Revson,
right,
that was not a fair thing. I got close enough to him to see that the real guy inside had steel and ambition and skill and no nonsense.
Well, you can't phone it in when you were racing Can-Am cars. I mean, that just wasn't an option, right? Those things were brutal beasts.
Yes.
And the Chaparrals were absolutely amazing. And Jim Hall, what he did was, and McLaren, all of those guys. I mean, with what limited tools they had back in the day in relative to today, it was pretty amazing what they were able to do.
I think I lived through a golden age of that. The wonderful thing about the Can-Am is that we used to say it has the thinnest rule book in racing. I think the only thing that beats it is the Pikes Peak Hill Climb rule book. There's nothing forbidden there. But you could do almost anything as long as your car had body work covering the fenders and 2 seats. So you could call it a sports car. You could put 2 engines in it. You could put aerodynamic devices on it. You can put any number of wheels on it that you wanted to. There was no dimensional limits. There was no restriction on the weight. I mean, there's no such thing as a minimum weight.
Wow.
You could carry as much fuel as you wanted to. It's unbelievable to people today.
Yeah.
You could.
Did they? I don't remember. But did they race long enough during a single race that they would add fuel, or would they just run like a Formula One race with just enough fuel to run the whole race?
Correct. They were generally around 200 miles.
Gotcha. Yeah, those
and that needed like 50 to 75 gallons.
right. It's amazing to watch the footage from those guys back in the day, and those cars, were not stuck to the ground like you think. Well, except for the sucker car that Jim Hall made, that actually literally did suck down to the road.
It did.
God, that was amazing. Of course, they did. I think they did rule that out, right? Didn't they? Didn't they call foul on that one?
Well, the sucker car, as you call it, for people who don't remember, it was basically a box on wheels. And somebody said it looks like the box it came in. But the idea was that it had the auxiliary engine at the back, a snowmobile engine that turned a couple of military surplus cooling fans for tanks. And that extracted air from inside the boxy body. And there were Lexan skirts on all four sides of the body, so that sealed the car to the road. And so it extracted air just like a suction cup. And it was phenomenally better through the turns.
Yeah. Wow, that would be amazing. And of course, I think the fear that everybody had was if the suction ever let go at the wrong time, that you could have a big problem, in the middle.
Well, in fact, that did happen. The driver, Jackie Stewart, before he was Sir Jackie, drove the car in the first race at Watkins Glen that year, 1970. But then Vic Elford, another English guy, came in and he drove it for several more races. And he's quoted as saying that there were times when the snowmobile motor failed or the skirt stuck in the upward position, thus compromising your suction. And he said there's actually no drama. It just became a real car, just a normal car. So you simply corrected it and came into the pits. So it wasn't a real drama.
Right. Well, it was fun to watch. What killed CanAm?
I have several theories. We could do a whole show on that. To be fair, the times had changed. Remember, that was beginning to be the problem. The Arab fuel crisis came in. The more concern about pollution came in. There were more and more interest in safety. The automakers that during the 60s had been focused on performance because that's what their buyers were keen on. They were sort of mandated by the government and by public feeling and pressure and probably personnel changes to then start focusing on socially responsible aspects of cars. So the spirit went out of the CanAm in my mind. Plus, they kept messing with it. They kept adding rules.
Right.
We went from the thinnest rule book in racing to they started adding pages to the rule book, to the point where they became no longer unique, never before seen cars. So they were just another car.
Just another car.
That took the spirit out of it.
Could there be a similar version of CanAm today? I mean, with unlimited technology, these cars would be, it's hard to even imagine that they'd be any better than Formula One cars, but they're highly regulated too.
Well, I mentioned Pikes Peak. I haven't been to Pikes Peak for years. Maybe it's changed a bit, but also that I think is still the case, but there's also off-road truck racing.
Right.
There's classes in off-road trucks where it's just as free as the CanAm used to be.
Sure. So. Yeah, Pikes Peak looks like a ride-along. Maybe I'd pass. I might pass on that. That seems like.
Have you ever driven up that road in a regular car?
No. Well, my kids live in Colorado Springs, and we keep every time we go there, it's closed or something, and we never get a chance to go. But we wanted to. But even then, I would imagine it's a little nerve-wracking, right?
There's one part of that ascent where you are on a relatively straight section of road. It's now paved. It was dirt when I did it. And on your left, there's this gigantic wall of rock, and the road's only this wide. And on your right, there's this gigantic drop off into absolutely nothing. The next thing out there is Kansas.
That's a long way.
Thousands of feet down. Even though it's a 2-lane road, you're hugging over to the wall on the left.
It's like those jitneys you see in different parts of the world, and they're on those narrow mountain roads that there's no guardrail or anything. It's right. So, current state of racing, Formula One. Do you pay much attention, or have you lost interest over the years?
We watch. My wife Lorna and I watch every race. We're waiting for the next one. We always wait over the winter, wishing Formula One would start.
I know it. So do we.
That said, I don't really like the cars that they're doing now. They have so many regulations.
Right.
And there's this social responsibility. We have to pretend we're trying to save fuel and develop batteries and so on. And the cars are so enormously complex
and big,
huge,
and they're big.
They're big.
Yeah.
I've not personally seen one, but from models that you can see, you can get a model of a car from my era,
right,
and a modern Formula One car, and you put them side by side, and it's like 75% bigger.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
They're much bigger, they're wider, they're heavier. The drivers are complaining how ponderous they are to drive.
Sure. Well, it makes it very difficult at a track like Monaco, too, because when you go from that different sizes to that, I'd like to see them. I think the V10 would be cool if they would. I don't think they will, but would be cool if they went back to the V10. I think
there are people that are suggesting that. Yes.
Sure.
No, you're right.
Yeah, we're like you. So we didn't watch the Chinese Grand Prix at 3. We recorded it and watched it early in the morning. But we try to watch them, generally speaking, when they air. But it's hard.
Oh.
But we got the wife into it, so that's the big a big factor there.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
my wife is keener than I am.
Oh, right. I think Kathy, my wife, is too. I think she seems to enjoy it as much as anybody. So it's a lot of fun. So back to your new book. Just came out, in the past couple of weeks or something?
We've just got our stock. We're selling them on our website now, PeteLyons.com. And we have a stock of books, and we're nearly out of that first stock, but there's a fresh shipment coming to us. But they're also being sold in various booksellers around. I know Auto Books, Aero Books, and Burbank has that, and I'm going to do a book signing with them in a few weeks. There's other good booksellers around the country.
Sure, it's nice to see a resurgence in automotive related books. There was kind of a lull period there, I think, when we didn't see the exposure that you're getting now, and now it seems like, and I guess with modern technology, you can kind of build to suit. You don't have to print out X amount of them. You can probably print to order almost, right?
That's for a quantity like 1,000, that's a fairly expensive way to go.
Right.
But you're right. If you're only going to do 25 or 50 or 100, that print on demand is fine.
Sure. Do you and you've got some of your older books too that I've been paying attention to that I want to put on my list. The complete book of Lamborghini. How the hell do you do a complete book of anything? That's got to be a daunting task.
First of all, that wasn't my title. The publisher put that on.
Were you going to say the almost complete?
Right. That actually was my first real big book.
Really?
Yeah. I did a car and driver story about a Lamborghini, and a week later I was sitting at dinner with somebody, and he turned out to be a publisher. And we got to talking, and car guys talk about cars. So I said I'd just driven this Lamborghini. It was fantastic. He says, we've been thinking of doing a book about Lamborghini, and so poof, 5 months later, I gave him the manuscript.
Wow. Was it more difficult to write a complete, if you will, book of anything? It had to be a little more difficult than maybe just writing from your gut.
I have to tell you that I suffer from diarrhea of the typing fingers. I can't stop writing. So in terms of typing it wasn't a problem.
Right.
And I did it in only 5 months, which to me is interesting because this book took 3 years.
Wow.
But this book is a lot bigger too. But
sure.
When I started going into books, I was constrained by magazine page space. You had to shrink everything to fit. In those days, 4, 5, 6 pages, but still there was a lot more that happened that you couldn't put in. So I turned to my first book project saying, at last, I have no fences. I'm on a wide open prairie. I can do anything I want. No, you can't, Peter.
Yeah, it can't be 2,000
pages. You got
pages.
more space, but you don't have infinite space. And so I had to get used to that.
Well, I think too, and you have to have space for photographs, and you can't a good oversized book has got to have photographs. Of course, you have that in spades. I mean, some of your photographs are chilling. My favorite is the stacks. That's the coolest
Thank you.
picture ever. That is, I'm ordering that in some format, and depending on how much my wife will let me spend, will determine which format I get it in. I hope it's not an 8x10.
You can get that on our website.
I saw that. I saw that. How amazing! And my other favorite one was Clark Corners at Mexico. It's almost if he's looking right at you. It's almost like he's posing for that picture, and that floored me. It gave me a chill when I saw that.
Well, he was oblivious to me, of course.
Right.
But it's in those days the Mexican track had a really slow hairpin, and you came down once. They came down one side, hooked as sharp or right as they could, and came back the other side. So there was a space, I don't know, that wide, for those of us with press passes and no fear of death could walk down in between the two. And so then at that point I was standing right on the apex. So the car is coming around me like that. And of course he's looking around the corner like that. But and did you see the companion picture of that? My dad is across the track, and he makes a picture of me shooting Jimmy Clark just exactly as I shot that shot.
Isn't that amazing? And I mean, for that to happen, your dad was well known, and somehow he managed to make Sebring part of the family vacation every year, right?
Yes, very clever of him, I thought. Yes.
I do that too with my wife. She goes, it's funny that every vacation we go on, there seems to be some car event going on while we're here. That's just, what are the odds of that?
We're both from the Northeast. I'm from New York State. You're in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And wouldn't you choose a chance to go down to Sebring in March?
Heck yeah. Absolutely. Right. So, well, thank God your dad's influence on you carried over so well, because your photography is amazing. And I recommend that anybody's looking for some interesting wall art. There's just some amazing pictures, including the Cunningham debut that your dad photographed. How interesting is that?
That was at Bridgehampton in 1952. Yeah, the first time the Cunningham C4R raced.
Wow.
Cunningham had raced an earlier model, but the pictures we have are of the C4R. The same basic car that won Sebring in 1953.
What was interesting to me was the one that, let me see if I can get to it now here. I'm scrolling through. I lost it. Where did it go? There's one, I think is it Dan Gurney driving the Camaro pace car?
No, that's Sterling Moss.
Sterling Moss driving a Camaro pace car. Yeah, that's right.
That name again.
Yeah. Here he just
Sterling had retired from driving at that point because of a bad accident, but he was still making himself available for various things, and so the SCCA hired him. The Johnson's Wax sponsorship hired him to be. They call him the commissar.
Right.
But he basically was, a public figure to draw attention and notoriety to the series. And Sterling worked hard at it. He did it. He took it seriously.
Sure. I wonder if that's the first time he'd ever driven a Camaro convertible. It'd be interesting to know if that was what his thoughts on that car would have been.
Yeah. Do you know that car is still around?
Really?
It was a special show car. And sometime in the last 10 years, I was contacted by the people who currently own it.
Right.
That's been restored and so on. They wanted that picture showing Sterling driving the head of the pack of cars coming up through Thunder Valley at Road America.
Sure. Yeah.
But that car is still in existence.
That's, thank God people had the forethought to save some of these cars that, like Joe Bortz did with some of the concept cars that General Motors built back in the 50s when they were supposed to go to the dump to the right and they all went left. They saved those things.
Excellent.
They weren't supposed to, but they did. And how wonderful is that? Well, and as you remember, I mean, race cars were just old used beat up cars back in the day. You didn't think about values. And then you see, the Seinfeld 917 Porsche sell for north of $25 million, and you just think, oh my God, I could have bought that car for pennies on the dollar, right?
Yes, right.
So
I had a chance to buy a Ferrari Lusso once. He was my boss at a magazine, and he was a wealthy guy, and he was supporting our magazine. And he had a Ferrari Lusso, and one day he came and he says, I'm thinking of selling the Lusso. I want to move on to something else. I said, are you interested? I said, what?
What are you, crazy?
He says, yeah, I'm asking $6,000. Wow. And I just looked at him, and I didn't say what was in my mind is,
are you crazy?
You know how much you're paying me?
Yeah. I'd have to have a payment plan from here to eternity, right?
But I should have scratched and clawed and lied and begged and stolen and got $6,000.
Had we known what we know now. So your website, PeteLyons.com, right?
Thank you.
You can order your books and your pictures and photographs. And photographs don't do it justice. There ought to be a better word or term for it because it's just fantastic.
Thank you.
And my last question, my most important question that I get to ask every guest, and it's always fun, and the more mundane the better, is what is your daily driver?
We have a Toyota minivan. I'm sorry.
You're like the third guy who said that. It's funny. We had what was the last week? I think it was Steve Austin has a minivan as well too because it works well with the golden retrievers.
But I do come by my Corvette shirt. Honestly, I drove this car in Europe, that red Corvette. I took that to Europe in 1973. That's taken at Monte Carlo in Sicily at the Targa Florio.
I bet you that was a spectacle in Monte Carlo back then to see a Corvette. There can't have been many of them over there, right?
Not many, no. It's funny though. I bought the car sight unseen, and then I went around to the Southern Hemisphere following Formula One. And my dad actually took delivery, and he took it to a place in Paoli, Pennsylvania, a guy named Babe Headley. I don't know if anybody, he was a Corvette racer, Babe Headley. And he retuned the suspension, and don't tell him, he took all the smog crap off. And then they put it on a boat to Rotterdam. So the first time I saw it, it was when I got from South Africa up to Europe. I went to Rotterdam and walked down the dock to get my car. There's cars on both sides, all sorts of things. But ahead of me, there was a sort of stingray-shaped prow sticking out. I said, "That's it." Oh, but it's the wrong color. I ordered a red one. That one's green. Oh my! How am I ever going to live? Oh wait. There's the red one just beyond it. 2 Corvettes on one dock in Rotterdam in one day.
Yeah, probably an unheard of thing. Well, that certainly makes up for the minivan. So I think you've redeemed yourself, Pete. Pete Lyons.
Let me say that the minivan is a wonderful vehicle.
And as I always say, you can still hit the apex of a corner in a minivan. So, there's that. So,
yes, indeed.
Pete Lyons, thanks so much for joining us via Zoom this morning. And sorry to get you up so early, but we'll look forward. Maybe we can do this again sometime.
I'm your man.
All right, sounds great.
Third, thank you so much.
Enjoyed it so much. We'll be back with the Classic Auto Mall show in just a couple of minutes. We'll see you then.
The Classic Auto Mall has more than 1,000 vehicles for consignment in our huge 8-acre climate-controlled showroom. It's a real indoor mall. If you'd like to know all the advantages of buying and selling a car through consignment, the information is available on our website, or you can talk to a classic car specialist who can answer all your questions. It's easy, safe, convenient, and it doesn't matter where you are. We sell worldwide. See our huge selection of classic and collectible vehicles at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall show from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. So a wonderful week. The consignments are picking up, and that's good to see. But where did we sell cars this past week?
Oh, that's right. Where?
How about Wally Grande, Alabama? Twice. Wow. Trapp, Maryland. Rochester, New York. West Boylston, Massachusetts. Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, Colonia, New Jersey, Quakertown, Pennsylvania, Katy, Texas, Broad Top, Pennsylvania, where the heck that is, Punta Gorda, Florida, just like saying that, Westchester, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia, Lexington, South Carolina, Reading, Pennsylvania, Heath, Massachusetts, Kinzers, Pennsylvania, Orville, Ohio, Wynwood, Pennsylvania. So pretty interesting week and some variety of cars.
What was the first one?
Wally Grande, Alabama.
Never heard of that one.
Walley, Grande, with the E on the end without the little squiggly.
Oh, well, that's where Big Wally lives.
Yeah, well, it's like, where are you from? L.A.? Oh, Lower Alabama, right? Yeah. Exactly. So we've had a great week and some great new arrivals in and some more affordable stuff that we put on our list to talk about this week. Number one was the 1982 Alfa Romeo Spider. I like these in silver. Silver metallic over beige and blue. I think it's a great color for those. Sporty Italian design. This has got an updated interior, a double overhead cam inline 4, 5-speed manual. little top-down skate.
Yeah, but when I lived in LA in the mid '80s,
They were hot.
This was the car to have.
They were absolutely hot, and and still are. I think that they still have a timeless look about them that look great. So next,
why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. The 1999 Renault Clio RN,
super rare,
white and black over dark gray and multicolored
inside.
132,000 actual kilometers. Peppy 1.4.
I drove it. It is Peppy.
Well, it better be Peppy.
Not Pepe Le Pew.
Not Pepe Le Pew. Rarely seen stateside. So this is a car that if you pulled up to a car show
or a Cars and Coffee,
people would flock to it.
Yeah,
because they just don't know what it is. I mean, and just because something doesn't have to be expensive to be cool,
right,
or to be recognizable, or to be different. And that's what I love about this car. It's just so unusual. And we have some cars like this. If you go through our website, you'll find some stuff that's really unusual.
Yeah,
we
like
have
that Alfa Romeo.
The Alfa, the Toyota that we have. That's the Japanese version of a Toyota Camry, for lack of a better term. I don't think it's a Camry. It's based on something else that they have.
But this Renault is left-hand drive.
Right.
There's less than 10 of them in the country, which is pretty cool. But there are French clubs around in the country that can help. So don't worry about parts and things like that, because they are accessible.
Other new arrival, the 2019 Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack. Between these and Bullet Mustangs, I think we've cornered the market on these. Octane red over black, 6,006 actual miles, one owner. Been kept in the garage most of its life, if not all of its life. 392 cubic inch Hemi. Those Hemi motors, man. They're bringing them back. I was going to say, I got a little note here. They just announced yesterday. I knew it wouldn't last. It did not last.
I knew it wouldn't last.
It did not last.
Right now they're saying it might just be a rumor, but ICE engines are back.
They're back. They're coming back. I guarantee you. They're going to, like pickup trucks. They're going to realize that the market. My Denali pickup truck has a 6.2 liter in it. It's an amazing motor. I mean, it just really is. And they're going to have a hard time getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a hard time duplicating that with something that's hybrid or all battery or whatever. Yep. So we shall see. It'll be interesting to see. Other new arrival, the 1954 Ford Crestline Victoria. This is a beautiful car. Sandstone white and cadet blue over white and blue. AACA National Senior winner. Yeah. Stunning restoration. That two-tone color combination is really special.
It is a beautiful car.
And it's a 230. It's an overhead valve V8 with a 3-speed manual tranny. So interesting car. How about the 1964 Avion T27 Camper? Butternut over wooden pale yellow, fully restored, walnut and cherry cabinets, new subfloor. That's something you don't often hear with any of the vehicles that we have here. It's a neat piece. It really is.
It is very Airstream-like, except it is absolutely a time capsule. I walked into that thing and I was like, I'm home.
Yeah, it feels familiar.
It really does.
For those of us who grew up in the 60s and the 70s, it's one of those things that just feels, it's like going into somebody's house that's still kind of decorated from the way Grandma had it. There's a certain comfort level that you feel when you go in there and makes you feel good. So this is interesting. You don't miss it because it won't last long, I don't imagine. And this next one that came in, the 1958 Buick Super Riviera two-door hardtop, blue mist and colonial blue over blue, 54,000 actual miles, 364 cubic inch V8, Dynaflow automatic. This thing has got more chrome than anything that we've probably ever seen. I mean, it is spectacular.
And it's ornate and it's unusual and it's just...
And we were talking about that before the show, and Randy was just salivating because he shot so many photos of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wow, all the detail of everything.
Every corner of that car is something unique.
Yeah, it is. And it's one of those things that they couldn't duplicate it today. I mean, to try to make that in mass production like they did back in the 50s would be impossible. It would be so expensive.
In fact, that might even deserve another.
Ooh,
it could deserve that.
It is an amazing car,
but it's beautiful, and it's in kind of driver quality. It's got some. It has some areas that need attention, or you could just drive it and have fun with it. Because nobody would fault that car and say, "Well, there seems to be a little bubble there, or this or that there." Nobody's going to say that. People are going to say, "Oh my God, that's a spectacular car,"
and they wouldn't complain because you took up 2 parking spaces at the Walmart because that's how wide that car is.
Yeah, and they made almost 14,000 of them, but I've never seen one.
You don't hardly see them at all. The Super Rivieras are very Super Riviera rare. And super rare and really, really, really interesting. So if you get a chance, go to our website, classicautomall.com. And you can check out all the new arrivals, plus the stuff that's been here for a while as well, too. Mm-hmm. And, you check it often, because sometimes something will change in a person's life, whatever, that they'll need to lower the price on these cars. And sometimes if you're on the fence about something and you think, well, it's a little more than I want to pay, don't be afraid to go back and check it again, because at some point in time, the seller may say, you know what, we really would like to sell this car before the end of this year or before whatever, or we want to settle our estate. So the prices can change on these things. And if you see something you like, make an offer. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I mean, you won't hurt our feelings. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's so out of whack, then obviously that we're not going to present that. But if it's something within reason, and you feel pretty strongly, and here's the reason why you think it should be a little bit less, because there's got to fix this and fix that, and it needs the air conditioning and da 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 da. Then make an offer based on, an educated amount. I mean, just to say a random number that you're willing to pay for something doesn't really hold a lot as much weight. So, but go on our website, don't miss it. If you see something come up quickly or something new, and it's something you're interested, act quick, because there are cars that barely stay here for a week. It's true. That barely even we have cars that don't even get on the website. I mean, literally a guy will just walk in here, it'll be coming off the trailer and say, oh, that's the car I've been looking for. And it happens surprisingly more often than not.
It's true.
Yeah, or you might be looking for something, and all of a sudden you checked yesterday, and then that does pop up on the website, and you're like, wow, I've finally been looking for that Studebaker Lark replica Indy pace car convertible.
Sure. Yeah, and they'll show up. So.
And we also retain a list that if you're interested in something, we'll keep you on the list, and then the radar will sound.
If there's a car that's not on our list and you like doing business with us, certainly let us know. We'll put it into the system. We get an email when that new item matches something that somebody's looking for, and it's surprising how many times that comes up. Where the guy, some guy will say, I'm looking for XYZ, and by golly, it comes up. And, you can't, as many people as we talk to in a week or a month or a year, or we've talked to since we started, it's hard to remember what everybody's looking for.
You got to write it down.
You better write it down, and you better write it down in a way that somehow it's going to remind you. So don't forget also our friends at Carlisle Auctions. Their auction is coming up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is just about an hour and 10 minutes west of Classic Auto Mall on the Turnpike, April 24th and 25th. Their website is carlisleauctions.com. They're expecting over 400 cars.
Nice.
It's a wonderful regional type sale, I call it. It's not, one of the nationally known ones that are broadcast all over the world and all that. This is just a kind of a local. It's a byproduct of their swap meet and car corral and an event that they've done in Carlisle, Pennsylvania for how many years? 40 years probably or longer. Swap meets are interesting. They're still relevant and prevalent. So
didn't Meekum start out as sort of a regional?
They were a small auction. Yeah, they would do them. I remember going in fields in the straw bales down on the ground, and it was quite rudimentary compared to what they are now, and then 4,000 cars in Kissimmee. So if you get a chance, check out Carlisle Auctions, and also keep on the lookout because Classic Auto Mall may be having a all no reserve auction coming up here in June.
How about that?
We'll let you in a little more on that as time goes on. When we return, we'll have our friend Keith Martin on to do our weekly segment where we bring his blog to life. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
Whether you want to buy or sell a classic, collectible, or special interest vehicle, you need to visit the Classic Auto Mall website for more information. If you're looking to buy, you can easily search our inventory of more than 1,000 vehicles on the web at classicautomall.com.
And here we are with our friend Keith Martin joining us via Zoom from the left coast, and our fourth edition or segment of Keith's blog, We Bring It to Life. And of course, this week, your blog on your newsletter was Flat Out. I love the play on I love the play on words. Looks like you did a little Rover Club action as well, too.
We had, what's happening to the Rover Club as it evolves into people buying LR3s and LR4s. It becomes a larger social aspect to it.
Right.
So instead of just going out and rock climbing and seeing who can turn their rig over the most, we ended up going wine tasting.
Sure. Well, those rigs are awfully fancy now. They're not, they're not the old, the Land Rovers of yore, right?
Yeah. No, and they're deluxe. They're what I like. The Land Rover 4 my friend has. It's it kneels like a camel.
Right.
So for me, with my handicap, it's easier to get in and out of it.
Sure.
My only question about those rigs is that they're so pretty, and they're slab sided. And we're used to going through tree branches that are kind of sticking out across the trail and just slamming into them. And I would be reluctant, just like I'd be reluctant to take a Porsche Dakar off-road.
I'm the same way.
If you see a Porsche Dakar, you take a picture of one off-road, I'll send you $1,000.
Yeah, it's like my SUV that my wife drives. It's never been off-road. The only off-road it's ever done is when I actually ran off the road just a little bit and actually got the wheel on the grassy side. But other than that, I mean, people just don't use. I mean, my SUV has very thin, low-profile tires on it. It's like a sports car tire, and it's strange because people just really don't take them off-road. You talked about the old Land Rovers. I mean, they came scratched from the factory, right?
Right. Well, they were crude and primitive, and they relied a lot on your skill set to get through things.
Sure, absolutely. And you have an older Land Rover, a Discovery too, right? That would have been 2000.
I had one until 2 days ago. I had one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was getting ready I had it for 3 years. My son used it for snowboarding. I put steel bumpers and a center diff lock in it. A really great rig, but it was time for it to go.
Right.
Because he's going to college in a place where there's not a lot of snow. And so I thought, well, I'll do, I don't have any paperwork on this rig, so I'll take it to a shop and do a pre-purchase inspection and do a compression check.
Very smart.
That way, when we put it on BAT, we've got some paperwork to back it up.
Sure.
Well, the pre-purchase inspection came back with $8,500 worth of work.
Whoops.
The rig has a value of $2.
Right. This is sounding hauntingly familiar, like your Mercedes purchase that we didn't get to talk about.
So we made a deal, and it went to a home. And then my son bought a 1998 Volvo V70 T5.
Nice. Those things are fun to drive.
Yeah, he's liking it, and it's a nice change for him. I love the Rover. I've had Rovers for 20 years, but it was just time. A Volvo wagon is more of a teenager's car.
Yeah, it makes more sense and haul lots of stuff. Haul the always. My parents always wanted me to have a car big enough so that I would be the one who drove. They trusted me, but they didn't trust my ne'er-do-well friends. So they always wanted me to be in something that was big enough that we could. Yeah. I would be the one who always drove. So I didn't like that idea one damn bit, though. I wanted something two-seater.
Do you get many Rovers in there at Classic Auto Mall?
We get a few here and there, but not very many. And it's unusual because there's a lot of woodsy stuff around here. There's a lot of people who snowmobile, who side-by-side, who 4x4, who four-wheel drive stuff that's around this area. So you'd think that you'd see more, but we don't. We see tons of Broncos and Internationals and things like that, but not a whole lot of Land Rovers, surprisingly.
And when you say Internationals, do you mean the new ones?
No. I mean the old, like the Scouts and the Adventurers and those things were really, really cool. I've seen the new ones. I guess they're all electric, right?
I don't know what I have mixed feelings about the redone Bronco and the redone International because they're not what they were.
No, they're a far cry from what they were. Yeah. That's the one thing I kind of like about the Jeep CJ or the Jeep Wranglers is they've held somewhat true to what they were.
Yeah, the Jeeps also, they have a really active group. Out here it's called the Jolly Jeepers.
Right. I like that name. That's great.
But they're always busy doing it. With a rig like that, you have got to have an active club so that at least once a month you're out on the trail.
Right, because if you're not out on the trail with those things, that's the whole idea behind it, and that's the whole enjoyment factor of it as well too. And it's one of those things that people kind of look at you funny when you say, "Oh, let's take it out on the trail," and they look at you like, "Oh, we've never done that before." That's you can take these things off road. Yes, that's what they were designed for. And if you remember the first Broncos, they were rude and crude. I mean, they were just utility vehicles, no different than a pickup truck.
Yeah, and we loved them.
We loved them. We absolutely did. And we loved the fact that my Blazer, that you had some rusty old bolts that you could take off and take the top off if you were so inclined and had 30 guys with you.
Was there any cooler thing than a full-size Blazer with the hardtop off?
It was the coolest ever. It looked like, I don't know, there was just something magical about that. You wanted to be on a beach driving down next to the wild horses and some hot girls with you and a case of beer. Oh, we couldn't do that, right? And that looked like a lot of fun. And not very many people took the top off of those Blazers because they were hard.
Yeah, right. No, it was a real era. When the Blazers and Broncos came out, it was a revolutionary time for American SUVs.
Right. Well, like the Grand Wagoneer. I mean, what an interesting car that was back in the day. And with their final iteration in 1991 with the wood, with the faux wood sides. But that was the start of what we know as a modern day SUV now, right?
I had one of those 91s, and you could tell them by the little hood ornament that was way out in the front.
Right.
And I had an earlier one where I had to lock in the hubs, but I couldn't believe with the Grand Wagoneer you get that leather, and
a fancy stereo, and
and a pretty good off-road capability for what it was.
Sure, they're pretty cool, and it's. Pardon me, but it's the one kind of resto mod that I've seen lately that I really like. Dennis Collins from Collins Brothers did a resto mod 91 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a Hemi in it. It was pretty darn cool.
We were having a big talk last night about the whole notion of how much horsepower is enough.
Right. I'm thankful that when I was growing up, my Trans Am had 180 horsepower, because if I'd have had a Hellcat or a Demon, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be dead, because we went as fast as whatever would go that we had.
That's right.
So in continuing with your recent blog post, talking about you ended up in the old reliable 2021 Hyundai Elantra and had a little incident with the Hyundai Elantra.
We walked out from this wine tasting place we're at, and there was a roofing screw in the sidewall of my car.
Nothing worse.
And I'm just looking at that, and it's about 5 o'clock. It's starting to get dark. The traffic's picking up. I'm about 40 miles from home on the freeway. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just stuck in there and it's not really leaking air. Right.
Mr. Optimistic.
Yeah, well, I have to be. And I had some duct tape I could have put over the screw. And I turned on the car, and then the tire pressure monitor thing came on and said 3 tires at 33 and 1 at 14.
Oh.
And I've been stuck on the side of a freeway with a flat tire before. And I would call that one of my least favorite things on the planet.
100%.
And so we look on the phone. We found a little Indy gas station that was open. This was a Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock. There were a couple guys working on a car in there, and the Volvo has a Space Saver tire, but it's a real tire.
Right.
And we talked to the guys, and they said, "Yeah, we'll change it out for you. It won't charge you anything." And we paid them $25, and 15 minutes later, we're back on the road with the Space Saver, and right. I felt so. If I hadn't noticed that screw, that thing would have gone flat on me while I was on the shoulder of the freeway.
Yeah, and there's, like you said, there is absolutely nothing worse. My son one time had a flat tire, and we had taught the kids how to change tires, but he had a van that had this weird contraption where you had like a handle, and it would unscrew from the inside, and it would lower down below, and it had this whole architecture, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's calling me, and I can hear the trucks whizzing by him, and I mean, I'm in panic mode trying to walk him through this, and I don't really know the whole process either. I'm just guessing. So, and I'm not always a very good guesser. So it was concerning at the least.
Well, it worked out okay. It was really, for me, so that week we ended up taking the 911S out, put 100 miles on it, put 100 miles on the Jaguar V12, put 100 miles on the Hyundai. It's what's interesting when you drive a new car like a Hyundai. It totally removes you from the sense that you're actually driving.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just kind of, it's an appliance, right? It's just
and I love it for that. I mean, that's what its job is. But when you're in the Jag or the 911, you're watching the gauges, you're listening to the engine, you're actively involved in the driving experience itself, which is why you and I love this thing, is because it's a sport.
It is a sport, and it's fun to master a different type of car, or a different type of feeling, or a car with or without power steering, or a car with bias ply tires. It's fun to master whatever the nuances are of those cars. Like you said, those get in. No wonder people get distracted driving these things, because there's not much to do.
I would agree with that. I just read a study by VW where they've decided that touchscreens are not the answer.
Right. Well, duh. I've thought that, but.
No, listen, I love the fact that with my Hyundai to heat the seat, I just have to press the seat heater button. I don't have to go into a screen, go down to seats, go down to temperature.
Yeah. Like the radio, like the volume knob on the stereo. Just make it a damn knob, I just want to be able to grab it. So I love the questions at the end of your, and we haven't done this in the past, but the questions that you put at the end of your blog on how often do you check the tire pressure in your classic car? And it's funny because it would be interesting to hear people's responses, because some of them be lying and say, "Oh, I do it all the time," when they don't. But every time I take my car out, I do a quick pressure check first. It depends on the car and how I'm using it. Whenever I wash the car or do something routine maintenance, I check tire pressure every month or two. I like this one. At the start of each driving season, I just make sure tire pressures are set, and that's good enough. That's probably most.
That's probably true also with modern cars. You and I grew up with tube tires and different things. And a slow leak was not an unusual thing to have on your car. Or
a car leaking fluids either. I mean, it's funny that people today panic when they see a drop of oil leaking out of a car. And if it's a Corvair, that's a good thing.
Well, I have a story to tell you. Yes. So my son's driving our 65 Alfa Julius Spider really for the first time yesterday. We drove 100 miles. He drove really great.
Right.
But we stopped and I had him put a quart of oil in before we headed out. At the first rest stop at about 50 miles out, we pull over and smoke is just pouring out from the engine.
Wow.
At first I thought it was on fire.
Right.
And then I thought, oh yeah, and let's see this. The fire extinguisher is in which car? That's not in the car I'm in, because why would you do that?
Sure, that would be too easy.
I've got a can of Fix-A-Flat here. That's probably not going to work on the fire. So he opens the hood. And I said, Bradley, when you put oil in the car, you took the oil cap off, right, of the cam covers? He said, I did, Dad. He said, where is that oil cap now? He said, well, it fell down behind the fan, and it's just sitting there.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
But you know what was good about it, Stuart, is it was a lesson for him that he'll never forget.
He'll never forget, and it was a great lesson. And one of those ones that no harm, no foul, no damage was done, and you'll never make that mistake again, like we all do. Keith,
you can't learn without making mistakes.
You absolutely cannot. So tell people how to find Sports Car Market magazine and do all the wonderful things that they need to do with this fantastic magazine.
First of all, we've been around 38 years, and we are the authoritative voice of the collector car market. If you want to read what real experts know about going on at auctions, you need to read Sports Car Market. If you think about the trolls on Bring a Trailer are interesting, think about expert trolls,
Absolutely.
Guys who really know what they're talking about and looking over the cars. We have a special in 1995, 6-month test drive 6. So you go to sportscarmarket.com/test drive number 6. You get 6 months of the magazine. You get our guide to restoration. You get our guide to Concours. You get our price guide. You get our online archives. 3 of us here have worked at the New York Times, and we try to break the standard of the magazine like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. So that I personally guarantee you will be so thrilled with this magazine. If you don't like it, drop me an email, and I will refund all $19.95.
Absolutely, and I bet you'll have no takers on that, because it is everything as described, and it's a wonderful publication. And just like what we're talking about, there's lots of this kind of stuff in there that you talk about, that you hear about, that you'll learn so much about the car world just by reading all the descriptions of the cars and the take of the expert when they're writing theirs. I mean, it's just a wealth of knowledge every month, and not something that you can just always Google and find on the internet, right?
No, you can't. It's all behind a paywall on the internet. You can get it at bookstores, Barnes and Noble, and so forth. But it's written by smart people for smart people.
There you go. I couldn't have said it any better. Keith Martin, thanks again for joining us this week on our special Bring Your Blog to Life. And we'll do it again next week on the Classic Automobile Show.
I look forward to this.
Take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
The Classic Auto Mall Show with their host, Stuart Howden, executive producer, Steve Sethier, produced and engineered by yours truly, J.R. Russ, video editor, Randy Lammy.
Available on ClassicAutomall.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Music courtesy of the Pat Travers Band. For tour dates, contact, and stuff, visit PatTravers.com. Produced by Car Smarts Media. Copyright all rights reserved.